Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Christian Hammer. He's a serial tech entrepreneur and CEO of Vala-AI, and he's also a podcast host of Techtastic podcast. Welcome to the show, Hammer.
Thank you. I love being here. I'm very excited. It's I think we're on opposite sides of the world. For me, it's bright and early in the morning. So good morning.
Good evening from India. So this is such a nice thing. You see, you get to when it's morning, evening here, you get to understand, feel the sunshine that side. Several times I see all these guests, through their windows, sunshine coming in, and it makes you feel life is very lively, and you feel alive and kicking together with someone else who is having their morning, and you have seen your day in your own manner. So in terms of
All I was going to say is it's absolutely true. I love being able to connect to somebody on the opposite side of the world and have a real-time conversation about a topic, and to see both the different perspective and the fact that for you it's evening, your day's already gone by largely, and mine's just beginning. That's kind of a fun thing to think about.
Absolutely. And you see, you are a tech entrepreneur. Technology is making that happen for all of us. And that's the good part of technology. It has democratized all these systems, which earlier were, very much confined to some of the newsrooms and all those places. But now we have this power in our hands because of technology. And that is what we will be talking about. We'll be talking about artificial intelligence. We'll be talking about innovation. We'll also be talking about leadership.
Favorite topics, all three of them.
Right. So my first question is to understand, firstly is that, innovation and AI. So how do we consider, is AI going to lead innovation in the future? How do we define innovation in today's time? Because everything is coming, a lot of things are coming through AI. We almost are not getting to hear about innovation in a very general term, which earlier used to be the norm. Help us understand, how do you see it as a serial tech entrepreneur, but also as someone who is very fond of looking at this innovation stuff?
I think that it's a great question because it's very much on point for today. If you're trying to disrupt a market today, or you're trying to be innovative in any space today, AI is going to be one of the first things you have to address. Whether it's how does AI help me address this space and do something faster, better, or how am I going to survive competition in the time of AI when almost any technology that you create, the things we used to think of as our durable moats in a technology company are the products, the features, the functions of those products, and how hard it is to replicate, or the special sauce you have. But today, with some of the generative AI tools that are out there, and the code assistant tools and that stuff, that durable mode is no longer any protection against somebody copying what you're doing, because they can reverse engineer it in a matter of minutes, and they could start developing and deploy something very similar in a matter of days. So innovation is a cycle of challenging the base norms, the things that are out there, and finding new opportunities to do things in a different way. When you're thinking of creating a new product, a new feature, a new thing that you're going to bring in the market, you're always looking for, we talk about this, at least in my company, as blue water and red water projects. A blue water project is one in which there are no sharks in the water. It's wide open. Nobody's doing it. That's what you're looking for. The problem is that sharks appear pretty fast. And if you get into something that looks like a blue water project, it turns red pretty quick. And by that, we mean the blood, the water from the shark's attack, right? So it's a matter of swimming today, because the generative tools that are out there allow innovation at such a rapid pace. If you know what you're doing, it requires you to swim faster. If you're going to stay in the blue water, you're going to swim faster than everybody else. So what tools are out there? What techniques can you use to increase your own velocity and rate of change? And that's actually one of the things Vala is trying to address. We're trying to help technology organizations maintain that pace of innovation by getting rid of the stuff that holds them back. the things that slow a team down from being able to develop at speed.
Right, right, Hammer. So you see, earlier from greenfield, brownfield to now we are talking about blue water and red water. So
Yeah.
a lot of changes here.
Yeah, and it's a good way of thinking about it, because the more crowded a market is, the more people are trying to do something in that space. Which, if you think of AI holistically as this gold rush moment where everybody's thinking about AI, generally the space is becoming crowded. Everybody's trying to do something new and interesting with it, which does make it a difficult time in that sense. There's a lot of competition. But at the same time, you've never had better access to tools and technology that enable you to go build something new. And that, to me, is the exciting part. I often think that I got into technology because when I was very young, I learned that I could make the computer do things that nobody else could. I felt like a wizard. Here I know the arcane knowledge of this machine. I can make it do magic. But that joy of creation that I felt from doing that wasn't held by all my peers, my friends, right? They didn't know how to do the same thing. They didn't learn to code. And so today, what's really, really fun is that today everybody has access. You were talking at the beginning about the access of the podcast and how we can distribute and connect directly now because the technology has enabled that. And it used to be something that you had to be in a major studio at a news organization to do, right? The same thing's now true of writing code, creating new systems. Anybody can do it. You've just got to take the time and effort to learn the new technologies that are there and the various tools. And there are so many of them hitting every day that it's almost impossible to stay up on. But that itself is an exciting thing. And it's, I don't know, it's the best time for innovation in my lifetime. And I'm just old enough to remember when PCs took over the workplace, and then the internet became really critically important, and then mobile devices like this one makes the previous ones tiny by comparison. And think of how disruptive those were.
Right, Hammer. So one challenge I want to understand through you is that uh, in terms of creating something through artificial intelligence, there is this problem of copyright. So you see anything, because that whole churning out of whatever output is through AI is all learned from somewhere, and you
Mhm.
never know. So that copyright, the last I understood about was that it is all, it is, you cannot have copyright in that. Then someone said that you need to show the prompts that you have created all that thing, and then perhaps you will stand a better chance. But nowadays, even prompts can be created through artificial intelligence. You put that again into artificial intelligence, then you bring out a human output again through artificial intelligence. I want to understand, a lot of this innovation is only focusing around artificial intelligence. From, you see, earlier from Sora to Cora, Cora to Sora. You see,
Yeah.
there's a text and video. And even Quora has been hit by creation by robots. And Sora is also all about, getting into the past, not through your imagination or a director's imagination, and you recreate it. So I want to understand that, will innovation be about just artificial intelligence, or
No.
will it be beyond that? Help us understand, how do you balance these two things?
Yeah, so the first part I want to say is that like the generative tools and the chat prompting view of the world is a very narrow portion of what AI actually represents. Like the things that we build, they're not, there's no prompt in it in that sense. We're taking the context of an entire system and mapping out all the interconnections between it and the logic of it. It's something that a human brain just can't do. It's too complex. And these technologies that have recently developed and emerged have made that possible. But no, I don't think AI is the center of innovation in and of itself. It doesn't, it's like fire. Fire can heat your home or it can burn down the village, but it's just fire. AI is just fire. It's how we use it and what we use it to do. It's just a tool. It itself is not innovating. but you can use it to chase down paths that you couldn't possibly do in a lifetime, to do the research on something. And by research, I mean, like, looking at big data sets and collating information in interesting ways. It still today takes a human being to interpret it and to know the value of it and to understand where it's going. So I don't think that AI is required for innovation. I just think it accelerates it. It's a tool that allows us to go much faster. There's a bunch of other technologies today that are on the verge of being that disruptive too. Quantum computing is going to have a massive impact on us for a very similar reason. The ability to look at massive data sets and come to a conclusion almost instantly. And to be able to determine things. But it still takes the human inspiration. It still takes a person to look at it and go, that's a good insight. That's worth chasing after, because we don't have AGI yet. When we get to AGI, that's a whole different thing. So AI is a great tool. It's a phenomenal tool, and the many different versions of it that exist in the world all have value, but they're just tools.
Right. So tools will have to be operated, and powerful tools will need responsible leaders to actually use it. So what is the role of leadership here? You are a serial tech entrepreneur. How would you like to guide the future of humanity, future of everything else, and innovation through your leadership? Because and in the right use of tool, this is the big debate of today. Because see, some of these leaders have much more, creators have much more power than even elected governments in that sense, and people want to understand this better.
Yeah, the role of the leader is always to choose where, like, to help people find it better tomorrow, to help them find a path towards that. And when it comes to technology leadership, and especially when you're an entrepreneur, what you're trying to do is you're trying to find a vision for the future that you can all believe in, and then help us find a path. It's not your job to pick every footstep that's taken. It's not your job to even tell people to turn left or right at any particular point, to use the pathfinding metaphor, but it is to choose the mountain that we're going to climb and to say, let's do this together. Here's how we all can help each other do it. So when it comes to technology innovation, it's usually starting with, there's something in the world that we all dislike immensely. It's painful, it's ugly, it's gross, we hate it. And today, one of those might be the huge amount of disconnect that humans feel with each other. We feel isolated, we feel alone in the world, and how much of that is because of how much time we spend with the technology instead of with each other. And I happen to think that one of the big upsides of generative AI being so hard to distinguish from reality, and blurring the lines between what can be trusted video, text, audio, is that it forces us to have to reckon with that. We have to go into the world and confirm it. We can no longer rely on getting our news from a podcast and trusting that it's coming from a real source. And as more and more of that fake stuff comes into the world, it's going to cause us to have to interact as people again. And because the technologies can now automate so much of what used to be the tedious stuff that we do in our lives, including, like, if you include robotics and AI that will be empowering those robotics to do things, maybe you don't have to ever clean your house again or cook a meal again if those things you don't like doing, or do your laundry, right? If you have that Rosie the robot in your home that could take care of it and do all that work, that frees you up to pursue higher value things, maybe to spend time caring for your loved ones and spending time with each other and having meaningful moments and seeing things. Or maybe it's in the creation of art or poetry or the other things that are uniquely human. Because even the generative tools, they can spit out a painting, they can spit out an idea for a sculpture, but it still took a human to decide which ones of those had any value. Even if you were to say that the creation itself was of the machine, it still takes a human to look at it and go, that means something to me, that inspires me, that it emotionally touches me in some way. And that's what I hope, and that's what I'm leading to. I try to take my teams toward, is a brighter future from the technology that we have, not the dystopian nightmare that can come of it, where we're all slaves to the technology. And in fact, this is actually kind of a weird side story, but I think a lot of people's jobs today, at least the white collar jobs that are out there, are slaves to the technology. You are hired to run a system. You are hired to manage the technology, not to bring some unique, distinct value that you represent. My wife has, I say she has alphabet soup after her name because she has master's degrees and advanced degrees and certifications and all that stuff. And what does she get paid to do? She gets paid to manage a piece of technology that's supposed to do what she actually is trained and an expert in. But all she does is runs the technology. I think that's an unfortunate outcome of the last few decades, and we're going to have the ability to flip that around.
Right. The danger is, you said that we may not have need to cook, we may not have to do anything. The danger is that we may not have to eat also, because artificial
Yeah.
intelligence will create some sort of concoction. You can have the pill and you are done for one meal, 2 meals, or three meals. And there might be companies who will sell these things. Now, in a distress situation, this can be like space travelers. That is fine. People who are there that can help you survive in those circumstances. But if that distortion goes into our general life, bit by bit, humans will move away from themselves. And these are some of the things like empathy, relationships, taste, sense. See, that is why we are talking about sentience. That
Yeah.
if these guys, if robots, computers start getting that thing, we will all be replaced. That is the danger. The danger is
Well,
not about anything else.
yeah. So the replaced part is always this fear that we're going to create something more intelligent than us. And our fear of the more intelligent than us is because how we view the rest of the world, especially the animal kingdom. Anything less intelligent, we have less trouble killing, right? One of the reasons that whales and dolphins now are becoming protected around the world is because they're so intelligent, and we can relate to that. But we have no problem killing mice and rats because we don't consider them all that intelligent. But here's the thing about mice and rats. They're mammals, so they have emotions. They have connection and relationships, and so you should have empathy for them. My view on the hyper intelligent AI AGI thing is that like we are creating it in that sense. We are imparting our own fears and our own foibles onto these technologies, and we have to be very careful of that, because the last thing we want to do is reproduce the worst of us in the technology we bring forward, especially if we develop artificial general intelligence. And we can do that in one way right off the bat. Humans are, because of our long evolution, we are hierarchical in our nature. We came from monkeys that became apes, and those apes had effectively tribes. And then as we became humans, we had tribes which rely on a strong central figure to kind of tell everybody how to work together. But it only scales so big. It doesn't fit our society as a globe now, because there's so many of us, you can't know everybody. And that's part of the problem. I can only really know, a dozen people or 2 dozen people. So if we don't impart those same failures onto the technology and the need for status, which is so baked into us because of that tribal nature too, and the artificial general intelligence doesn't have those needs, it won't try to put itself at the center of the universe. It won't try to put itself above others because it doesn't have any need to. It has no desire towards it. So we just have to be careful to not put those same human needs and desires that are potentially dangerous and potentially negative onto it. And it doesn't live in the real world. It doesn't have fear. It doesn't have sadness. It doesn't have those types of emotions because it doesn't have the chemical system that tells it that you should be afraid or you feel in love or all those types of things. It is just logic. And now that's the part that kind of scares me. One of the positive things of being a human is empathy, right? We are extraordinarily good, most of us, at being able to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes, understand their worldview, and to adapt our response to that. To say like, oh, wow, I really should be kind because it's early in the morning for that individual and they're tired. So what they just said, they didn't really mean. Like you can do that, but can a computer do that if we don't give it to it? So that's the part where we move our technology forward. We have to be very, very conscious of. Let's give it the best of us. Let's give it the things that we wish we were more like, the better angels of our nature, and let's hold back the worst of us. Let's not make a sociopath. We've got enough of those in the world. Let's try to make sure that it only takes the best of us forward.
Right, Hammer. Earlier, you see, we used to say that necessity is the mother of invention. So people
Yes.
used to, invent or innovate. Even in physics, a lot of things are about, applied physics so that it can make our lives better.
Yeah.
Today, humans are trying to understand their purpose better. Amidst this time, what is the purpose of AI or any of these, new innovations based on artificial intelligence or AGI, whatever it is, whatever new technologies might come in? What is that purpose? Have we ever thought it, or we are just producing?
Yeah. For the most part, I think that most technologies get created through a desire or need of the individual who first created it, or the teams that created it, to solve a specific problem. We were trying to do this because of, this pain point, this thing. That's where most innovation comes from. The necessity being the mother of invention is exactly right. I had a need, so I created something. That's where most of it comes from. The problem that happens is once something very general like AI in our current form comes into the world, people start looking for excuses to use it. They see a solution and they look for a problem. And that's a terrible way of approaching anything, because it's the opposite of necessity. It's just desire. And desire doesn't get you very far when it comes to it. You might get lucky and find the pain point somebody has. But if you ask the purpose of it, why are we doing these things? The purpose always has to be, I am making the world a slightly better place, or a much better place, because I'm solving some pain that humans have, or some problem that the world needs solved. And if you keep things focused there, you have a profound impact on the world in a better way. Now, not every good intention has good outcome. I think that social media is one of those things that, well-intentioned, people connecting and having a way of finding out about your friends across the globe that you haven't seen in a dozen years, is a well-intentioned technology, but it has some very dire consequences, in that it allows for misinformation and bubbles, information bubbles, and some very bad political outcomes can stem from things like that. Everything has its good and its bad. Doesn't pick a topic and it's going to have a negative impact. It's just, if we do it right, if we keep focused on the positive outcome and trying to solve the problem, we get more of the benefit and hopefully less of the downside, less of the problem for it.
Right. Now, when some people have less means, they think about inventions, trying to, take care of pain points of others.
Mm-hmm.
When you have lots of resources, like large companies, they are not so good at innovation.
They're terrible. Yeah, well, it's largely, there's two things that go into innovation. One is I found a pain point, I'm going to go solve it. That's half of the necessity. The other half of the necessity is, I have to eat. I have a family I need to take care of. I have a need to change this thing. The problem that most large companies, or any large group of people, have is that second piece is missing. They already have it. They're a huge company with billions of dollars in profit or in revenue. And so it is very hard when you're in that situation to really understand the need and the desire of it and the hunger that's necessary to go solve it. There's another problem that comes up. Part of it, well, there's like three. So one of them we call the innovator's dilemma, and that is associated with, like, I'm a large company that already has most of the market share in this space. Why would I ever do something to disrupt that? I'm risking it to make a change, right? And maybe that outcome's better, but I don't care because I've already got the market. That is very difficult to overcome. Then there's institutional momentum. Like, it's a group of people already going in a direction, and it is very hard to change that. When you've got 10,000 people all going the same direction, try to get them to turn just a little bit in another direction. It's very difficult because, the mass of humanity going in that direction. And then the third big one is just the humans being that like multi-tribal piece. We take ownership of parts of it within it, and so I own this little part of this big thing, and you're asking me to change it. You're going to have to convince me to change direction in that little micro space, my little kingdom within the big org, right? And all taken together, most large companies can't get out of their own way. It's just, I actually don't think most of them ever can. It has to become a whole culture of innovation. And there are some very large companies that do this exceptionally well, that they know their benefit in the world is by constantly challenging base assumptions to constantly innovate in the market. And they've productized it. They've institutionalized that process. And they're very capable of doing it. But most don't. Like, they built the machine that does the thing, and that's all it's going to do. And the best thing you can do if you're in that space and you've got a company like that is spin out a new company that tries to do the innovation piece, because and make them hungry. Like, I don't mean starve them to death. I just mean like make sure they've got good incentives against revenue targets and they've got a shot.
Right. As a general person, what I understand is it is not about anything else. It's about hunger versus hunger. One hunger is the real hunger, and another hunger is the hunger for more money that takes you away from taking risks because you don't understand that part of hunger. Maybe it is time to send some of this large company leadership to an island with a couple of energy bars and understand hunger in a better manner. And they will come out with a lot of innovative ideas.
Maybe. I mean, but they'd probably come back as one or two of them would survive, having stabbed the others and eaten them. But the problem with a lot of the large companies is they tend to also absorb people that are very self-interested, because it's very easy in a large organization to carve off a narrow space and own that tightly without any real consequences, the downside risk. Because even if I'm super selfish in a big company, I really don't impact the bottom line or risk the company. If you're super selfish in a startup, you kill the company. You've got to be motivated by collaboration and everybody, swimming together, because it's going to take everybody doing that. So I don't know. I think I've been in a lot of big companies, and what I noticed almost right from the start, the first one, was how self-absorbed a lot of leadership ends up being. How focused on their own individual pain, not that of the whole org and their teams. And that's a very difficult place to get anything positive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is why let's come to your company, Vala-AI. Tell us what your company does so that we understand. Also, I like this term tech debt. I want to understand this for the audience.
Yeah, so tech debt is an overloaded term. It gets used a lot in technology. And generally what we mean as technologists when we talk about tech debt is the things that slow us down from innovating. It's the past technology decisions that, for whatever reason, we now regret having made. And they can come for a lot of reasons. Like, maybe you're building something very fast, so you didn't worry about making it scalable. You don't worry about how many customers I'm going to have on it. So you just build it. And but it takes different permutations. But generally speaking, tech debt is a past decision I made that I regret today in technology. And what we try to do is, so God, there's going to be so many things I want to talk about here because this is one of my favorite topics. But whenever technology is being built, you're making a lot of assumptions based on right now what you know. What I know about my customer, what I know about their desires, what I know about how many of them there are, the technology I have in front of me, my own team, all that. Today, Jeffrey's writing code for me. I assume he'll be there tomorrow. But Jeffrey might not be there tomorrow. Jeffrey might go do something else and take a different job, right? So I make a lot of assumptions today. They get embedded in the technology. Tomorrow, I look back and go, wow, I really wish we'd had somebody else look at Jeffrey's designs because only Jeffrey can read what he created, that type of thing, right? So what Vala-AI tries to do is we try to take a big step back from the whole thing and understand what is the technology trying to accomplish now. It's important to know what you were trying to accomplish in the past. That gives you the intent, but now we need to know today's desire. What are we trying to do with it? And then we look for gaps in that. Is there a better way of doing it? So if you were drawing a map of the technology and saying, like, here's your country that is your technology composed of all these different pieces, some of those pieces you're going to regret. Those would be the tech debt. You're going to say, I really don't like the choice of this database system because it slows down transactions or whatever. It's bad storing data or whatever it is. But what we do is we create a map and say, if you want to use the fantasy term, like an old timey map, when they didn't understand a part of the world, it would say there's monsters here or there's dragons here. Like, it's that. We come into your technology landscape, draw the world out and say, there be dragons here. This is a problem. This is a space you need to fix. And if we can fix it, because we generate code to resolve some of these issues, you can push a button that says, fix it. If it's a security vulnerability, that's a prime example of a piece of tech debt that we can actually resolve. So it says, hey, you've got this security vulnerability here. Push this button. It generates the patch, submits it into the system so that it gets built, and then it gets deployed out with it. But if we can't fix it, we tell you how you can fix it. Here's what you need to do. So if it's security vulnerabilities, that's pretty straightforward. If it's so modern software is built of lots of little pieces. Those little pieces, when you use them, you call a dependency. And you often have many dependencies in any application. Those dependencies change constantly. And sometimes when they change, a new version comes out, and that new version breaks the system that relies on it. I used your piece of code to build my system. You changed it. Now mine breaks. It's called breaking change. Some of those we can also fix. We say, hey, these have been upgraded. They break your stuff. Click a button, it fixes it. If not, because it's an enormously complex version of it, we tell you how you could fix it. But we try to build all the way up towards the full end. We understand your performance in the cloud environments, if that's what you're using, or on your servers, if you're self-hosted, whatever. We understand how it's performing too. So we have intent on one side. We have the desired outcome on the middle, like what's the business outcome I'm trying to get, and on the far other end, how's it performing? You could almost imagine this like the scientific method. I have my hypothesis, I have my testing, and then I have my data results. And our goal is to be able to transform the technology so that your results match your desire. I'm trying to solve this problem for my customers. I want them to click buy as many times as possible, whatever. My strategy changed a little bit. We need to modify our technology to fit it. Our solution tries to keep your technology moving at pace. And so we say that we're eliminating tech debt because tech debt is just resistance to change. And if we're able to change at the speed of business, the business is evolving and new desire, new hopes, new wishes, new strategy, we can evolve your technology at that pace. And so tech debt, even though there might be places where your code sucks, and there might be places where there are decisions you made in the past that you still don't like, doesn't matter because innovation and your technology is evolving together. So that's what Vala does.
Absolutely. There is much to learn still, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to connect with you, understand about innovation, about leadership, about artificial intelligence, about your company. So what's the best way for them to connect with you, Hammer?
Well, the best way is probably to go to Vala, Vala-AI.com. That's our website. And then you can connect there by, there's a form you can fill out. You can join our beta program. You can do that thing. LinkedIn's also great. I'm Christian Hammer I think I'm C Hammer 1 on LinkedIn. But you can just look for Christian Hammer, Vala-AI, and you'll find me. Those are the two best, but all else failing, hammer@Vala-AI.com is my email address, and I'd love to hear from you.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Happy to be here. It was lovely, a great time.